So, spawning down in the bottom left-hand position as the purple Terran player representing Millennium, it is DieStar. And his opponent to the top right, the red Protoss player representing ATN, we have KnowMe. So, this is going to be a very interesting game. A PvT on merry-go-round. I've got a lot of hope that things are going to be fairly awesome because it's the first round and the last chance for these players to actually qualify for WCS. It's the wildcard qualifier, so both of these two players have had at least 200 wins in order to qualify to compete in this. And that's either in Season 1 or Season 2, not the combination of both. So this is pretty tense for them. There's only 4 spots remaining in next week's WCS EU Challenger League, so they must win today, or they're not going to be in Season 2 of WCS EU Challenger. So, keeping a close little peek on exactly what is happening, and we've just got KnowMe right now checking up to see where his opponent is spawning, and unfortunately going to scout the wrong way. Meanwhile, DieStar, he's opening up racks into a gas, and that means things are going nice and safe on his side. Gonna be probably looking for a Reaper first opening, as opposed to much else. So, over on KnowMe's side, he's busy adding in his double gases. This isn't necessarily going to be a tech-heavy play, but it's going to come a lot down to whether he puts 3 probes in each or just 2 probes in each. That is the really important thing to keep an eye on. Anyway, probe coming in here now, going to take a little peek and say, yep, DieStar, you're probably getting a Reaper down, aren't you? You've got that gas. Going to get a quick little click from KnowMe to see how much gas has been mined. And DieStar is just going to be chasing down this probe and going to be looking for some scouting. The advantage for KnowMe is that he knows what's coming now, so he's going to be making sure that he gets out a Stalker very, very quickly. Meanwhile, KnowMe, as long as he gets a Stalker out, should be absolutely fine in stopping this. DieStar, of course, just keeping an eye out to see when and if a natural base gets taken, and with only 4 probes in gas total, I expect to see that natural base come down relatively soon. KnowMe though moving back, he's got to sell it out, and now following in with a Stalker. We've also got no sign of a warp mothership core yet, although KnowMe not quite enough gas to start that up for the moment. Behind all of this Reaper play, we've got DieStar just taking his natural base right on cue. And he's also going to be trying to get a small amount of damage done with this Reaper. So chipping away, getting damage where possible. Now just backing on out. He's like, okay, I've done a little bit of poking, a little bit of prodding, but with a Stalker there, I can't commit to actually killing anything. It just isn't possible. Meanwhile, DieStar adds in the bunker. He's grabbing 2 additional barracks, so delaying tech in order to get out just more units in the short term to make sure that he's completely safe from any kind of poking or prodding, because for now, DieStar hasn't seen the natural base. Because, yeah, if you don't see the natural base, you don't know whether it's a 1-base play. Obviously, you don't know if your opponent's expanding, so you've got to be a little bit concerned. There's also the bunker just finishing up. This is surprisingly close. In goes the SCV. DieStar gonna be saving that, and this is really important for him now, because, yeah, if you've got the bunker up, it's going to be really hard for any kind of gateway units to go through. And actually, KnowMe ended up losing a Zealot there, and all he managed to kill was a Marine. So that's basically a much better trade for DieStar. Marines 50 minerals, a Zealot 100, so pretty much double it straight away. Anyway, KnowMe, he's just sitting here with his forge, with his robotics facility coming through. And yeah, as long as this all keeps going the way it is, we're going to get a very tech-heavy play out of KnowMe. What KnowMe's sacrificing in order to get this tech is obviously any production now. He's only got a couple of sentries, which are going to buy him some force fields if he needs to basically just zone out a couple of units. But he's got very little in the way of gateway units. His mothership core, those 2 sentries, and of course the Stalker, doing everything possible to zone out this Reaper. But the Reaper manages to get in. It scouts the fact that there's the robotics facility and the forge coming down simultaneously. So DieStar now completely aware of what KnowMe's doing and has a really solid read on his opponent. The best way to counter this with what's currently coming out from DieStar is a hell of a lot of aggression, as far as I'm concerned. Because, as I mentioned, if you're getting out upgrades and tech at the same time, you're sacrificing your early production. So in terms of overall army supply, especially after these 2 additional gates came through, Rax came through rather, DieStar is going to have a decent amount of infantry. He's also adding in a 3rd base. This is relatively early on, but not crazy so. Just making sure that he can stay secure and defended if needed, and also out-expand his opponent. KnowMe with a +1 ground armor, also on its way. Generally when you see the armor come down for Protoss, they're looking to go towards a lot more zealots in their composition, acting as that front row tank that can soak up a lot of the marine damage. Armor, very strong against marines. Due to the low damage per hit but high rate of fire, it actually knocks out a higher percentage of the damage. So, no move out now by DieStar, and what he's going to be predominantly aiming to do with this move is that, hey, Mothership Core can float an overcharge, but it then uses its energy, so it's a waste of energy that is really the big thing that's going to be aimed for. And that's going to buy time while these 2 medevacs come out, while the +1 infantry weapons is researched, waiting to see if we can get a move in. And with Stim and the double medevac, you can get some really annoying things going on. So, Robotics Bay and also an Immortal coming through. This means that we're going to be getting fast Colossi out of KnowMe, and that puts a bit of pressure on DieStar, who's having to fend off a couple of Zealot warp-ins right now, just to get a decent number of Vikings. Now, I didn't make too much of a deal of these Zealots because I was expecting them to get shut down relatively easily, but they're going to get a tech lab, and that's surprisingly good. Getting a tech lab down simply means that, hey, you don't get any more Marauder production out there, and the Marauders are going to be really important if Colossi are coming fast. Because once the Colossus start being produced, until extended thermal lance is done, the Marauders equal the range. These Zealots still going strong, and this is surprisingly effective. They're racking up 4 kills, which isn't huge, but if we don't get the resources lost, both players actually taking a decent beating from that. But a bit of gas, if I'm not mistaken, or a little bit more gas lost there, actually from KnowMe, because of the fact that his War Prism died. So, first Colossus coming out, we've got 2 Immortals, extended thermal lance being chrono boosted. And as I mentioned, chrono boosting those extended thermal lance upgrades is essential to make sure that the Marauders don't match the range of your Colossus, and that make them very vulnerable to a big stim moving. So KnowMe, at the moment, he's taken his 3rd, getting some scans down, and this scan does get the money. Sees the fact that there's a robotics bay being furiously chrono boosted, and even sees the first Colossus pop. He is now completely in the know of the army composition of KnowMe, at least for a good few minutes. Sure, there's going to be the eventual tech mix-up and the late-game compositions with high Templar in it, if we get that far. But for now, just the fact that he knows there's Colossi, he can start pumping out the additional starport in order to ramp up his Viking production, ready to counter them. We've got a nice little double drop coming in towards the main base. Gets 1 pylon. Going to be trying to duke it out with these Stalkers. Photon overcharge will be triggered, but both medevacs managed to escape. That was damage for, I believe, nothing there by KnowMe. He maybe lost a couple of Marines at most, but definitely a good little trade for him. DieStar, he is up at 126 supply to 113, and KnowMe is just starting to posture a bit forward, and is no doubt getting a little concerned that his opponent has had a lot of time on the map without much pressure, but also quite a lot of time without a scout coming down. And because of this, KnowMe has no idea that there is a 3rd base. I don't believe he did see it being burned in the main, so he knows the one's coming down and should therefore suspect that he needs to get his own, but he didn't actually go for it. Instead, moving forward, putting a proxy pylon out and getting down the Twilight Council. This is quite an interesting timing from KnowMe, because since there's only 2 Colossi, it's not hugely effective, but what he should be very aware of is that it's unlikely to be many Vikings. However, by delaying things just by a couple of seconds, it's given DieStar the time to add in a couple more Vikings, rapidly going up to 4 and aiming for 6, and that means that he's going to be a bit more effective with the engagement, Now coming down, good little time warp allows a couple of additional shots to come out of those Colossus, getting the damage down on the infantry nice and fast. Force fields as well being used to pin a couple of units, and KnowMe being very aggressive. He's up at 85 to 74 workers, a lot of SCVs being pulled here, and this is a dangerous move because versus the Colossi, sure they tank up some damage, but what they risk losing is a lot of workers. The Vikings coming in from the side, the Mothership Core will get taken down, meaning no mass recall, and the Colossus are now taking all the damage. One falls, the Gateway unit's taking a lot of damage, but the two Immortals and the Colossus at the back racking up a fair few kills and a lot of damage. Once that Colossus dies though, it's only Gateway units and the Immortals, and Stim Infantry going to be very effective up against that. The splash damage for Protoss, essential at the moment. Behind, we see KnowMe adding in a third Nexus. But he's got a bit of a misrally on this Colossus. This is like an early Christmas present for DieStar. He's going to take it out nice and quick, and as a result, KnowMe currently doesn't have a Colossus on the field. And that's really frustrating for him. Not going to be seeing anything yet out of DieStar though. He's not going for the fast counterattack. Instead, trying to just lick his wounds because he actually dropped 42 SCVs because of that pull. It is just a ridiculously high number of workers to lose early on. And I'm not 100% sure that it was required in order to actually hold that, but it was fairly close. The Vikings were needed to just pick off those Colossi, but this now gives KnowMe an economic edge, despite the much later third. Their army supplies level at 80 on each side, but compositionally, we can sit here with, well, actually a better composition for the most part, sitting on KnowMe's side, I'd say. He's got that Colossus out, the two Immortals. With only two Vikings, the Colossus isn't easily going to get taken down. Double Viking production, quadruple Viking production from the double starport means that if we don't see any more Colossi, there's a lot of supply going to be wasted. There's only two down at the moment, and there isn't yet a Templar archive, so not quickly switching into Storm. So that means pumping out a lot of Vikings is going to be the best response to dealing with the splash damage KnowMe currently has at his disposal. Quick little use of a hallucinated Phoenix to try and get some more information. A triple drop queued up. Is it going to get seen? Chasing down some of those medevacs, but not going to get there in time, thanks to those missile turrets stopping things in their tracks. And well, the triple medevacs are now going to be looking to go for a nice big drop. And with KnowMe positioned very far forward, in order to preemptively defend his third base if required, and no vision defending or keeping an eye on what could be coming into his natural, this one cannon really does have his work cut out. Plus 3-2 upgrades on the way out now for DieStar. Meanwhile, KnowMe adding in that Templar archives and some additional gateways. But those three medevacs are moving forward. This should force a big pull out or pull back from KnowMe, and DieStar is already preparing the rest of his army to keep moving forward. A pickup of some of those units will get them out, 1-2 medevacs being a little bit traitorous, but now KnowMe's army is going to have to try and frantically get to this third base because DieStar, he's pumping straight through, killing off a couple of those Stalkers, and he's focusing the Nexus. It goes down insanely quickly, and these Vikings are able to pick apart the Colossi exceptionally fast. A good amount of damage done, all of them now dead, and the drop at the natural base has come back in. DieStar focusing on multi-prong aggression, trying to force KnowMe's army to be in multiple places at once. And as a result, he's getting some really good damage. We can see that he's already killed off 19-20 workers, and that number still raising. He picked off a Nexus, a much bigger gain as far as I'm concerned. But when this is sitting with a Terran on 3 bases and KnowMe now double expanding, or expanding a fourth and remaking his third, he's not out of this game yet. Lacking that splash damage is going to be hurting him, so he needs to get these Colossi out. But some beautiful feedbacks destroy the medevac, which did have a lot of units in it, and as a result, this drop shut down. However, DieStar pushing back into the third, forcing another cancel, and just keeping the pressure going nice and strong. Waiting to see if we're going to get DieStar pull back, or whether he's just going to keep looking for the engage. Does get the scan down, his Viking count only at 4 though, so that Colossus would survive quite a while. dealing a fair amount of damage. So DieStar, I think, quite wisely, retreating back and just waiting to see if KnowMe decides to be aggressive. And KnowMe doesn't really want to move in here. He doesn't know what's sitting back at home for DieStar. But likewise, DieStar, he does not know that KnowMe's got a 4th base. And this 4th base really does keep KnowMe in the game economically. Just. But it's the army supply that's very level. And so this next fight could make a big difference. Slight upgrade lead for DieStar, who's going for this. The Vikings trying to get some damage down on the Colossus. One attempting to be hallucinated, but not in time. DieStar knows which one he should be aiming for. The infantry on the ground dealing a lot of damage, but the Colossus in the back finally falls. The gateway unit's getting annihilated. And now we have a push forward from DieStar. GG, KnowMe cannot hold that. And so game number 1 in this best of 3 goes to DieStar.